Yeah, my battery's okay. Some reason it wants to be. They're not the one that I picked out. Okay.
Yeah, that's working. Audio part's good. You've got a camera.
I need to lift it up.
Okay.
So it looks like if it's standing, pretending in there, sitting, we may need to move this.
Yeah, we
Because this is the camera.
If you want to stand where you're going to stand, we'll use this to look at where you're going to be.
I can stand. I'm just not used to sitting.
We can stand. We just need to move this to where you can see you properly.
All right.
Okay, that looks good.
Good.
And then we're gonna.
Oh, good. Close in that chair.
And I just need to, you mind if I
Pull up my presentation. In the meantime, things interviews.
get it out there? Actually. When we're ready.
Yeah, okay, good deal. Thank you everyone for coming. Appreciate that. And I appreciate Heidi for coming out on Saturday morning. And definitely appreciate David on Zoom can hear us. Because he got aggravated one day trying to log in on Zoom. The sound was bad. So We're fortunate to have a professional sound person do that. I'm Gloria Hauser, your District 22 council person. And those of you who regularly attend know that each month, when I have my meeting, I bring somebody from Metro out to Bellevue, because these are often people you don't have an opportunity to connect with. You don't get to see them face to face as real human beings and ask your questions freely. And so I've been committed to each month bringing someone out to Bellevue that you don't have access to, so you can learn more about how government works. I know myself, before I joined the council, a lot of things were just mysterious. And you aren't sure who do you call for what, and how does it go from point A to point B, and that can be really confusing. And then that's involved with social media, and that doesn't really help. So I'm committed to each month. We've had the tax assessors, we've had people from the trustee's office, we've had people from West Precinct, we've had people from just every department coming out here. I'm going to be our next meeting. We're not going to have a meeting in May because that's the Bellevue Picnic, and I'm not going to compete with that. But in June, we will be having another special meeting with the League of Women Voters and the folks from the Davidson County Election Commission. Kind of answering all your questions about elections and voting and how we are securing our vote and why it's so important. So do mark the third Saturday in June on your calendar for that one. If you aren't on my email list, please make sure you check next to your name and email address on the sign-in sheet. That's how you will receive the most current information, is being on the email list. And then I don't blast you out with every little thing, but you will receive maybe 2 a month from me. Just when things are going on that you really need to know about as a way of communication. So please do sign in and check that you want to be on the email list. For those on Zoom, if you are not on my email list, you can email me at Gloria, Gloria, period, Hauser, HAUSSER, at Nashville.gov, and say put me on your mailing list. I have to have permission. I can't just swoop out and gather a bunch of emails and blast them out to you. That's not legal. So I have to have your permission, either by signing in or emailing me that you want to be on the email list. And so today, I'm really excited that we've got somebody from Office of Emergency Management. Those of you that live in Bellevue know that we do have tornadoes and we do have floods. And of course, every place has fire and medical emergencies. And what we want to do is not panic and run around like chickens with our heads cut off. We want to know what to do and how to do it. I have an example of a note that I started putting together for my family. It has had a coffee emergency, so please overlook the coffee stains. But that was something that I had started working on long ago. And I'll be glad to email anybody that information if you want an email form and set up your own. So that when there was an emergency, you knew what you could grab, you started life all over again, even if everything was lost. If those of you that were in Bellevue last year know that we had a near miss on a flood, and I happen to live about 30 feet from the bank of Flat Creek. So I watch it. And actually that night, I remember making a decision that, okay, if it goes so many feet more, that's when I leave. And I had packed up all my most important things that could not be replicated into my car and went around knocking on all my neighbors' doors and saying, put a bag in the car. I will honk my horn when we got to get out. And fortunately, I never had to honk my horn. The creek did not overflow its banks. But those are the kind of situations that bring to mind that we've got to be prepared in advance and not panic, just know what to do so that your most important things are what's safe and that you, most of all, and your family are safe. So I want to turn this over to Heidi, who's with our Office of Emergency Management. That's what the OEM stands for on her sweatshirt. And she's going to tell us how we can be safe and how we can be prepared. So Heidi, take it over.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning. Love to see people in face and still on Zoom. But my name is Heidi Mariscal, and I'm with the Office of Emergency Management here in Nashville. I've been with OEM for roughly 18 or so years. So I've been through quite a bit, along with a lot of you. I like to gauge how the audience is prepared. So if y'all don't mind, and you on Zoom as well, even though I can't really see you. But if you could just close your eyes for just a moment. I don't want to embarrass anyone. And if you have an emergency kit at home that is truly ready to go, can you raise your hand? Okay.
Good.
If you have an emergency communications plan that people know of, not just you, but other folks as well, can you raise your hand? Okay. All right. So I have some work to do with you, but that's okay. That's okay. As many of you know, we are really big on flooding, especially on this side of the county. And I was watching storm stories. Have you all ever watched storm stories? I love watching those. I guess it's just the way I'm wired, but I love watching them. And it was kind of ironic that it was showing last night. And I was going to come talk to you guys today. So I thought I'd just share a little bit of it because it's sad how some things happen. And this was in Arkansas, and it was in June of 2010. We probably didn't hear much about it because we were still dealing with our 2010 flooding. But it was in a campground and it was flash flooding. They had a little bit of warning ahead of time, and warnings were sent out in the middle of the night. Flash flood warnings were sent out. However, a lot of people were sleeping and it was a campground again. So there were RVs and there were tents and everything else. And it rose over 20 inches within just a matter of a few hours. 20 people died during that flooding. And to me, that just really, that really gets to me because could there have been something better that happened on, the government side or the, the weather service, whatever? Could there have been something more? And it's really hard to tell because we can do our job, but it's more effective if you guys do stuff as well. So we can send out all the warnings we want to until we're blue in the face. But if you don't have a way to get that message, or if you don't look at the message and comprehend, okay, this is serious. We can't come and force you out of your home in the middle of a flood and be like, come on. We've got how many people in the county, including our tourists and everything else. So it's a two-way street. Being prepared really is a two-way street. And watching that storm story last night, it was pretty intense. Just how fast and how just insane it was. So I was asking, okay, did they have their cell phones on? Did they have emergency alerts enabled on their cell phone? Did you guys know that you need to do that on your cell phone? We have the capability to send you emergency messages through a federal system called iPause here in Nashville, but you might not get it if you turn it off. That's just one of the things. And we're going to talk more about that here in just a little bit. So I'm going to make sure that you guys understand that, because if you accidentally turn that off, you might not get some of the messages. iPause is the system. But we'll talk more about that here in just a little bit.
Would you spell
IPAWS. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. We can set it up to override do not disturb. Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And that's a really good question because a lot of people don't understand that, that might stop them from getting the message. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once, which normally I'm good at.
And I know that sometimes we get a lot of messages, like there are times that your phone is going off, like it seems like every 30 seconds. How we differentiate, or are there certain
You said you're going to cover all of it.
That's a really good question. And when I get to the few slides into this, then we're going to talk more detail about making sure you're getting exactly what you need. Okay. So yeah, well, I'll get right back to that. So these are the three things, and I don't know why this is shown.
No,
There we go. Okay, so these are the three things that it takes for you to be truly prepared. And these are minimum. Be informed, which we're going to talk about, make a plan, and make a kit. If you have all three of these at least touched upon, you're doing good. If not, you have some homework, and it's a good weekend because you can't garden yet. And it's killing me. I want to garden so bad. But it's a good weekend to make a kit and make a plan. So if you have these three things, you're doing good. So we'll get you there. All right, so these are the different events. So being informed means you know what could happen here. A lot can happen here. We know this, but these are some of the things. We can get extreme cold, extreme hot. We've seen that a lot. Severe thunderstorms all the time. We're right in the middle of storm season. Flooding, tornadoes, obviously, if you've been here longer than 6 months, you know that. And then we also have fires, and then hidden behind the box is civil unrest, criminal activity. We've seen that. We've seen the civil unrest. We had the bombing. All these things happen. We're a big area. We're a big city. So those happen. Out of these, can anybody guess what the #1 hazard is for Davidson County?
What is civil unrest?
protesting.
Negative. Flood. Flooding is #1. Tornadoes is #2. And I think
Probably severe
severe
thunderstorm.
thunderstorms is #3.
Yeah.
So those are the biggest things that we need to be prepared for. And it's important you know that, so that when you make your kit and you make your emergency plan, that you can plan accordingly. So I'm gonna see if I can't move this window here. There we go.
So you said it's flood, tornado?
Flood, tornado, and severe thunderstorms. Yes. Okay, so being informed means MEANS. That is the system that Metro uses to send out emergency messages if we need to. And that's the site. If you just type in means, like I mean it with an S, means.nashville.gov in Google, it'll pull up and you can sign up. You can sign up for, it's very customizable. So you can set it up to override a do not disturb. You can set it up, don't disturb me between these hours, which I don't suggest you do. And you can set it up to notify you if something happens close to where you live and close to where you work, close to where your kids are, close to where your parents are, whatever. You can set it up. If we have an emergency situation within an area around your location, you can set it up to get notified. And so that's a proximity alert. And we haven't had to use that much since this has been implemented, but it's always good to have. So police department has access to this system. OEM manages the system. Fire department has access to the system, and so does 911. So if there's a 911 outage, we can send a message to everybody that signed up for it, so on and so forth. You don't have to sign up to get the big emergency alerts. So if there is a big situation going on, we can send it out through the iPod system. And that's a system on the federal side that we were granted access to by FEMA because we have the systems to do it. So we can send a message out and send it to every single cell phone that we want to within our jurisdiction.
Is the tornado alert that we get the first Saturday month, connected to your system?
Yes, we manage the tornado sirens. Don't come at me, I didn't put them up, okay? But some people really don't like them. But yes, that's managed through our system. And it's good for those that are outside. The tornado sirens that we test the first Saturday of every month at noon, those are meant to warn those that are at the parks or maybe out on the lake or downtown walking around. That's the purpose of that. So if you hear them in your house, that's a plus, but don't expect it. Okay, that's meant for those that are outside and they don't have a TV in front of them, basically. So when we can send these messages out to inform you, okay, we have civil unrest downtown within this area. please stay indoors or whatever. Or we have, PD can send something out that says, okay, we have this, this person of interest that we're looking for, known to be in this area, maybe armed, so on and so forth. They can send a message out, and it can be a message just sent within a location, an area. And so that can go to anybody that's around that area. And if we send it out through iPods, let's say you're my parents live in Montego. So let's say I'm down in Montego and I'm coming home. I have no idea what's going on here.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm on vacation.
Username.
Maybe I don't. As soon as I cross into the county, we can have it set up in the message to automatically ping that phone and send that phone a message, even if you weren't here when it originally happened. So we can set it up. So let's say we have another 2010 flood. Then we can send this message out, warning everybody. We don't do the weather messages, just so you know, the weather service does those. Those can go, we have it set up to go through our means system and can come to you. So you can sign up for getting weather messages through means and it'll automatically come to you. We don't touch the weather ones, but we can set it up to where it's like, okay, avoid this area or massive flooding. We can send other emergency messages, civil messages out. And as soon as we set it up, like I said, if you're coming into the county, you weren't here, but you're coming home or something, it'll send you that message within that time period we told the message to send. So if we say, okay, for the next 5 hours, we want everyone to know about this, and we can always extend it if we need to. But then that way, maybe Council Lady Hauser was out and about and she's just now starting to come home. She could get that message on her cell phone directly without having to even sign up. So there's two sides to this means system. One is the federal big emergency side that we can send messages to any cell phone, regardless if anyone signed up. And then we have the one to where you can sign up to get specific messages. Yes.
So is there someone who's visually impaired? Is it their phone that translates that for them, or your system would help with that translation?
That's a really good question. So I work a lot with the deaf, hard of hearing, deafblind community in those that are on the spectrum, so on and so forth. So those that have access and functional needs, a lot of that stuff is already going to be on the phone. So if you have your phone set up for accessibility functions, then it'll, whatever you have it set up to be, either the screen is really big or it speaks out to you. So whatever accessibility function, and if you need help looking for that for someone else, I can help look at it with you. But yeah, within your phone settings, that's where that would come up. So this just comes through as a text message. Okay.
So that's true of language as well.
Yes, so we can send out currently through the iPod system, so the big emergency system, okay, to where you don't have to even sign up. We can send that out in English or Spanish. Currently, that's all the federal government has it set up to. And then we would have to translate it before we submit it. So it has to be submitted, translated already. So there are some things that aren't fully, totally up yet with the system, such as having all these different languages. But hopefully they'll get there soon. We're at the mercy of FEMA on that one. Yes, ma'am.
Or I could set it up. How do I set it up? Wake me up and you can be home that night.
So that's a good question, because your weather alarm, do you have a weather alert radio? Okay, do you have the bed shaker? So you can get a bed shaker. A lot of folks don't realize that. They are more expensive than just a regular weather radio, but you can get a bed shaker. And so it's something that kind of goes under your pillow and stuff, and then it'll shake to wake you up. Or you can get a strobe attachment, or you can get both. So currently we have some for those that are deaf or hard of hearing available to give away. If you're interested, or if anyone's interested, you can go to the EARS website, EARS, and that's Emergency Alert Readiness Services for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And then you can sign up on there. It'll automatically pop up and you can sign up for there and it'll send a message to someone to get with you. Okay, okay. That is, I think the current radios with the attachments was from Upper Cumberland or Holland Rim Healthcare Coalition, which is a group of all the hospitals and stuff that come together. So they gave money for us to be able to go and purchase those. Because it's a disadvantage and it's unfortunately more expensive than the hearing person to just go out and get a radio. So we're trying to help with that because there shouldn't be any barriers. So yeah, so the bed shaker and then the strobe light, you can get attached to that. For your cell phone, unfortunately, I'm not sure. I don't know of anything that you can do in regards to attaching it to a bed shaker. I don't think that's possible yet. The only thing is maybe in your settings to where you can go into your settings and then have it flash or something. You might be able to set it up on that.
I don't have a super animal too, so I don't think that she's trained for a strobe light, but that wouldn't be hard to do.
That would be a good idea. Because if you notice, I mean, a lot of the fire alarms, they have the strobe lights. So anytime a strobe light, you know, even on a fire engine or something like that, that would be something good for them, you know, to recognize the strobe light to warn you. Yeah, that would be great. Good conversation. It looks like we might have a few things in chat. Do you mind if I just want to make sure? Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I am so sorry. Okay.
Good idea for some people.
All right, Ms. Armstrong, the questions were talking about accessibility with the weather radio and the cell phone, and a lot of that for your cell phone can be found in your settings on your phone. And then for weather radio, you can get a strobe light attachment or a bed shaker
That
attachment.
is what, by the radio. We can download it here.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, does anybody, well, no, everybody here lives in Davidson County, so I think we're good on that. Any other questions on the emergency alerts? Because to me, that's important. That's really, really important. One of the things I do want to highlight, and this is more for the younger crowd, but when we send a warning out, please don't disregard it. It may happen, it may not happen, but the conditions are there for it to happen. So that's why the Weather Service sends warnings. That's why we would warn you. We're not going to warn you just because we feel like it. The Weather Service isn't going to say, let's make them all go sit in a corner, you know, or sit in their basement for a couple hours. No, seriously. The younger population, and I have adult kids, and a lot of times it's probably my fault because I like to watch storms. But they'll be like, and stop, listen. I mean, we're warning you for a reason. It's not just because we feel like it, and one of the things that Hurricane Harvey, that was another storm story. I guess I got on a mood last night and just kept watching all these storm stories coming up. But Hurricane Harvey, and it was actually a storm chaser. And he was saying, oh, you know, things just weren't looking, you know, all that impressive, meaning destructive. So we were, you know, not thinking much of it. And then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And he goes, before you know it, even though there's these warnings out for the hurricane and the tides and everything, he's like, you know, we just didn't think much of it. And then all of a sudden, boom, and it picked up and turned into a massive hurricane. And people were trapped in their homes and they didn't heed the warnings to get out because of the massive flooding. And so, yeah, just because it doesn't happen all the time, I mean, that's a good thing. But when it does happen, we all know that it can get bad fast, especially flash flooding. I don't know if any of you have been almost caught up in it. I have, but you need to take it seriously. You know, heed the warning. Yes, Ms. Huff.
Yeah, when my granddaughter was about 5 years old, they had talked about tornadoes and what to do in her school. And we were having a warning, and boy, she went around the house, she was gathering up pillows, she was putting them all by the basement door, she had her snack, she was like ready to go to the basement. So, I mean, we wanted to calm her down to where she wasn't, it's just a watch yet. We're not there yet, but she was ready to go. So I was glad that the school system at least was giving some training to the children. So they felt empowered. They knew they could do something. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted you to come out, is so that people would feel empowered, not just terrified, but what do I do to get by this?
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because besides adult children, I have a 10-year-old. And she loves weather too. I guess I'm just an influencer. But she used to be scared and terrified. And I got it to where, okay, honey, this is, and after explaining it and showing her things and, kind of the science behind it and everything else. And like you said, empowering her to understand it. Now she appreciates it more. And she's only 10, but, she doesn't, tornado warning comes out. She's like, oh, okay. And and she'll do just that, but she'll grab her Nintendo Switch and pillows and go sit, which is fine. I would rather her be preoccupied than scared, but adults are the same as children. If we don't know what to expect or what to do or how to plan accordingly, then we're going to freak out. That's just how our brain works, the fear of the unknown. So it's important that you take these steps. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay. So make a plan. I got to keep moving this window. All right. So you can ask yourself these questions and come up with a plan. Okay. Because asking yourself these questions really gets your mind going and gets you thinking. So how will you get to a safe place from work, school, or home? And the reason that's an important question. Yes, ma'am. I do have some books that you can take home with you, and it'll help you, and some paperwork that'll help you with it. Plus, I'll make sure that you
Send me
have
the
this.
PowerPoint, I'll put that out.
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna get you all prepared. So to have a safe place to go from work, school, or home, we don't know when something's gonna happen. So how are you going to get to a safe place? If you live in a mobile home, for example, you need to know ahead of time, okay, in the middle of the night, this is where I can go, or in the middle of the day, this is where I can go. If I'm at school, this is where I can go. If I'm at work, this is where I can go. If I'm here, this is where I can go. So it's important that you think about all that and put that within a plan.
Yeah, where we
How
can
will
go?
you contact one another? So a
Yep,
lot of
good.
us rely on cell phones. However,
Not
it
in
has
the-
been proven time and
That's
time again
right.
that cell phones are not 100% reliable. So you need to have multiple ways of getting in touch with folks. One way I do want to say is that if you send a text message or not an SMS, not like a picture, but an actual just text message, that will go through, should go through, if your cell phone calls can't. So if you try to call someone like 9/11, and even when we had the bombing downtown, calls weren't going through because everything was congested, but text messages, a lot of text messages were. So if you can't call, go ahead and send a text. If it doesn't send right away, it might. Whoever's on your contact list.
Oh, I thought you meant two downtown. Oh.
No. Whoever's on your emergency plan. Mhm, yes. So whoever you want to talk to. Text should go through if phone calls can't go through. Also, let's say you live here, she lives out of state, and you want to reach Ginger. So how are you going to get with her? You can't get to her. So what you're going to do is you're going to call her or send her a text message and say, I'm safe. This is where I am. This is how I can be reached. She's going to save that information because you already have an emergency plan. Ms. Hauser is gonna know to call her or to message her and tell her about her well-being. I'm safe, this is where I am, this is how I can get reached, this is what I need, whatever. She's gonna give that information. So she's gonna be, I guess, the phone operator for you guys, because you guys live here, she doesn't. So does that make sense to have an out of context? So my sister lives in Minnesota. I live down here, my parents live down here, my other sister lives down here. So we all know that when an emergency is happening, my sister up in Minnesota is going to be our contact if we can't reach each other. Okay. How will you be able to meet your family or your loved ones? If you cannot communicate, have it planned out ahead of time where you might meet. Are you going to meet here? Are you going to meet at a police station? Are you going to meet at Walmart? You know, have a couple different places picked out ahead of time. If it's in the middle of the night, this is where we're probably going to meet. If it's in the daytime, this is, so think about all of that, especially the timing. And then that way, so let's say I leave my 10-year-old at home. I really don't, but let's say I do. And something happens at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm working, my husband's working, she's at home. We can't communicate to each other because whatever, powers, whatever. She's gonna know what to do. She's gonna know where to go if something is happening at the house. If nothing's happening in the house, obviously, and she's safe, she's gonna stay there, but she's gonna know these different locations. And then that way, let's say she comes across a police officer or a fireman or somebody or a councilman. Hey, you know, I can't reach my parents, I'm scared. They said to meet here, I need to get here. Maybe she can get her neighbors, so on and so forth. So talk about and have these different meeting places all planned out ahead of time.
We live, 3 of us live over here at the solid apartment complex. And ever since I've been there, I'm on the 3rd floor. And the first thing I did when I moved in, because I'm from Alabama, I'm used to bad tornadoes. So the first thing I did was say, where will we go? The people, your residents, is what I asked the manager. I said, we don't know.
Yeah.
And I never got an answer. So we just, a lot of us in long time people living there, found one hallway in the bottom floor. We kind of say we'll be there.
Yeah.
But I don't still think that's safe. So how do you know in an area where your safe locations are? They don't have the old fashioned signs on the door. If you remember
Yeah.
those.
So I can't answer that question for you, but what I can say is, remember in the early part of this presentation, I told you the different hazards to be ready for. So you need to put your what if hat on. What if this happens at this time of day? What are we going to do? And then you need to look at what's around you. What are your resources? Do you have a car? Do you not have a car? Can you drive? Can you not drive? Do you know somebody on the lower level? Do they have a clubhouse? Do they have a fitness room? So you need to ask yourself all those questions and look at every possibility. Because unfortunately, you know, there's not a building code, hopefully yet, that requires apartments to have a safe room or requires mobile home parks to have, you know, a safe spot for the residents to go. That was a really big hint.
And I would be glad to work with you on that. That would be
Because that is a big question, you know, and if you live in an apartment, we try and tell folks, number one of the sturdiest places is going to be under a stairwell, if there's a place that you can go, because that has more structure to it. But your bathroom, the innermost part of your home is the safest place that you can go and as low that you can go. If you can't go any lower, just go as far inside of the building as you can, away from all the windows and exterior walls. So any wall that is facing the outside, you don't want to be around. Okay. So, I mean, in my phone number and stuff is on here. Make sure that she sends it out. So if I can help any of you, if you are in a unique situation, just let me know, and I'll try and work with whoever I can. And then last but not least on this question, what will you do in different situations like a flood, tornado, power outage, or other emergency? Like I just said, everything is unique. We can plan and plan and plan and plan and plan. Something's not going to go right. That's why you need to be flexible and you need to know what your resources are and what you have access to, what's around you. Okay, and then there's a link in here. And I have some printed out here, emergency plans that you can go ahead and fill out and keep and make sure that your family members know about it or your close friends, neighbors, whoever. But this is the ready.gov site with FEMA. There's a lot of information on there. So I highly suggest that you guys have an emergency plan and an emergency communications plan with your family and friends. Okay, so now we're going to talk about making an emergency kit. For those of you in person, I have a sample of an emergency kit. This is just one we bought online years ago. Don't look at the expiration dates because yes, the food and water is all expired, but that's just to show you something that you can just readily buy online. If that's all you want to do, it's better than nothing. My suggestion is that you create a kit for you, for your family, whatever is happening. So if you have special dietary restrictions, if you have things, you know, medical equipment, I have hearing aids. So you need to make sure that you have extra batteries because that's the last thing you want to do is to be in the middle of an emergency and not be able to hear much. So thinking about that, and as kids, you need to keep them occupied. I have a 10-year-old and oh my gosh, if she doesn't have a book or something, I'm going to go crazy. So think about that, pets, all of that stuff. That's how you create your kit. So you have to create your emergency kit to last you at least 3 days. So how can you survive 3 days without getting anywhere, without anybody coming to you? It's just you. How can you survive? What will you need? And so you really have to think about it, not all the unnecessary stuff. We're talking about survival skills, flashlights, whistles, emergency blankets, food, water, medicines, all that kind of stuff. And that's a really good kit to get an idea of what's in it. You can pull whatever you want out. I'll figure out how to stuff it back in. But also there's a link on this. And in the booklet that I have over here, there's a list also of things to consider having in your emergency kit. If you don't want to just go out and buy one and you want to make one, what I suggest is you have it in some sort of backpack, something that's going to be easy to carry. Maybe it has wheels on it. Maybe it's an old suitcase. I don't know. You know those like plastic things that for Christmas storage, those storage bins. If you can get one of those on wheels, that's good. Having something that is waterproof, it might, you know, not totally get ruined if you're running out in the middle of a pouring down rain. But it has to be easy for you to be able to move. So keep that in mind. These are just a few of the things that we suggest: cell phone chargers or hand crank radios that you can charge off of, or those little battery banks you can buy on Amazon or you can get elsewhere. But they're just little, they can be just little cylinder things, or it can be about the size of a cell phone that can charge your phone. I have one in my purse just because I'm always running around, and that thing can charge my phone 2 times to 100% before I have to recharge it. So you can get some really good ones. They're not too expensive. It all depends on what you're looking for, but it could be anywhere from $10 to God only knows how much. But I think the one that I got was about $20. And in order to charge it, you just put it into a cell phone charger and you're good. So. And then these are some other things, and I already talked about this. One thing I do want to mention is about medicines, and I'm going to give you a little reasoning behind why I think that's so important. Having your prescriptions or at least a list, because I know it's not always feasible. You know, especially if you're on insulin, it's not always feasible to have that stuff just set aside an emergency kit. You know, you can't really do that. But at least have a list and the dosage. If you have that list written down, that will help you. If you have to leave the house, also have your insurance information, have your doctor information, have whatever stuff you will need if you're going to have to go out and get more medicine. Hurricane Harvey, when we had evacuees come here, I was on the tarmac and we were accepting the evacuees. And there were so many people that came off of that plane with no shoes on, with no bags, with, I mean, nothing. They just shoved them all on a plane and sent them here to get them out of harm's way. And they had nothing. I mean, kids without shoes. It was so sad. So think about that. And in your emergency kit, if you can put a pair of old shoes in your kit, do it. Because you never know. But a lot of these folks were elderly. They didn't have their insurance information. They didn't have a list of their medicines, the prescribing doctors, the dosage. That was a big challenge for when they came here. We had to get with the Tennessee Department of Health and our Metro Health, and we had to try and work and figure out with FEMA. I mean, it was a big undertaking to try and help these folks get this life-saving medicine. A lot of it meant they had to get reevaluated, and they had, you know, here locally. So it's a challenge. So keep that in mind. Have all that information. And if you feel comfortable, if you want to, maybe put it in your phone. Then that way you'll have it readily available if you carry a cell phone around a lot. Have that stuff in your phone. Any questions?
I'm kind of a belt and suspenders gal.
Okay.
And by that, I'd say, I think it's really good to have everything written down and some other method. And at least the emergency stuff can be in your wallet. You know, take a picture, put it on your phone, make it a Google Doc, save it online to where you can access it. So I'd say have multiple ways. Don't just depend that this one method is going to be the one that survives. You could drop the paper in water and it's gone. So if you have something written, just the essentials, not all the others, but the essentials, and have it in your wallet, on your phone, and somewhere on the cloud, then you're pretty well covered.
And what a lot of folks do is they'll send a picture of it to their own email. And then that way you can log in, like if you're at a shelter, you can log into your email and you can go and you can search for important documents if that's what you labeled it. And then they'll be able to pull that information up. So you can do that as well. Or you can send it to your out-of-state contact. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can, you know, have them have something on file. For that kind of stuff, I'm talking social security information or passport information, driver's license information. That's what you can do with that. But if you don't want to do anything electronically with that, if you have a copy of them, put it in a Ziploc bag or something that will protect it from getting wet or having coffee emergencies like Miss Hauser. So some of the stuff that I have over here on the table for you, for those of you that are here in person, is a preparedness book, just a little small booklet that you can take. I have more here, so if you want to take more for neighbors, you can. And then I also have the printout from FEMA, the emergency kit information or the emergency plan, but also this right here is something a lot of people are not aware of. It's called Yellow Dot. Has anybody heard of it? Okay. So this is Yellow Dot, and it's with Tennessee Department of Transportation. So if you have a medical situation that you want first responders to know about, if you get into a crash or an accident or something, you can request this online, or I have some here that you can take, and you can put this in your back window. And then if first responders or state trooper, whatever, see this, then they're going to know that you have something written down and put in this little envelope and then you're gonna put this in your glove box. Okay, so this is a great little program. I would not suggest putting like your social or, you know, anything like that. But, you know, let's say that you have a pacemaker as an example, and you want first responders to know if you get into a crash or something, then you can go ahead and you can put this in your window, write information down. It's all explained here. And then you can just fold this up, stick it in your glove box, and then they'll know to look for it. Even if you have like autistic kids or anyone else that's autistic and maybe they're mute, you might want to do this. That way responders know, they'll look at this and then they'll be able to be like, okay, so he's okay, he just doesn't talk. So it's a great little program, and I bought a bunch. So if you guys want to grab whatever, then you can take it. You have a question?
Or if you're allergic to any medicine for a first responder.
Yes. Yes, any emergency medical information. But yeah, being allergic to stuff is really important as well. Okay, well, my phone number and my email is on here. That's my direct office number, so you don't have to go through anyone else. If you want to call and have a conversation about how you can be better prepared, it's available to anybody.
Tell me your name again.
Heidi, Heidi. Last name is Mariscal, M-A-R.
Hold on.
Okay.
M-A-R.
I-S-C-A-L. And I can even come out and talk to any other groups that you guys have. So if you know, especially if you have like a cupcake group, I'd be more than happy to come talk. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. We moved here in 2009, and the weather has progressively over the years gotten more violent. Tornadoes, hurricanes, et cetera, et cetera. Where does Metro or you get your information to send out warnings? Because it seems like here in the South, as soon as there's even a remote responsibility, that something is going to happen, the newscasters, the weather people are on that channel 24/7. And like by the time something does happen or doesn't happen, I'm so scared. I'm going like, I've got my bike helmet on, I'm trembling in my little corner. My husband's standing there saying, what are you doing? Okay. How accurate is your information versus the weather people?
Okay, so there's different weather people. So I just gonna throw that out there. So we get our information from the National Weather Service. Okay, they are the only ones that are allowed to put a warning out, a watch out, any of that when it comes to weather. So the National Weather Service is a federal agency. The news forecasters, they get their information from the National Weather Service, but also they have knowledge of meteorology as well. So you need to think about it this way: they're on TV, they're communicating to you. So it's their show that they're communicating what's going to happen. Most of the time, we are very lucky here locally that our news folks, we all have a good relationship. They play well. They don't take things too far off. I've seen some markets in some areas that they're just way off from what the National Weather Service is saying. So I know firsthand that our news people are talking with the National Weather Service because there's like a chat and stuff that they can get on with the Weather Service folks. We get our information only from the National Weather Service. You know, we don't get our information from Channel 5 or Channel 4 or Channel 2 or whatever. But what you're explaining is a very real situation to where it's called basically disaster fatigue. And our area in particular, we've been through a lot. I mean, 2020, we had a tornado, and then we had COVID start, and then we had civil unrest, and then we had another major storm that I actually got damaged from in May, and then we had more civil unrest, and then we had a bombing, and then we had an ice storm, and then I mean, it just kept going on and on. So disaster fatigue is a real situation, and there's not much we can do about it, because I mean, if we could control disasters, we'd be like, okay, we quit, there's not going to be any more disasters, but we can't do that. My suggestion to people is be informed, sign up to get these messages, know where to get your information from, and then take the warnings. Don't ignore them. But I don't think you need to sit there, and I've caught my oldest son doing this sometimes, more in particular with the war in Ukraine. He'll be glued to it for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I'll have to be like, you need to stop. You need to get away from it. So what I tell folks is, when you get a warning, warnings are normally issued just for a shorter time period. Watches are longer. You know, we might be in a tornado watch for 24 hours, but a warning, tornado warning, that's normally going to last just a sliver of time. So you get your watch, you prepare yourself, keep an eye on the weather, do what you need to do to take care of being prepared for if we do go into a warning. And then when you're in the warning, that's when you need to take the action. That's not when you need to start preparing. That's when you take the action. So a tornado warning, tornado watch, we're in a tornado watch for, you know, from now until 1 in the morning. You have that much time to prepare yourself as you're keeping an eye on the weather if it changes. But when you get to a tornado warning, that's go time. Okay, that's the start of the game. That's when you have to go into your safe spot, make sure you have everything you need, and hunker down, because it's going to be a shorter time period. So I don't recommend people sit in front of the TV and dwell on it for time and time and time again. Get your information and take action, because it can get really old, and we don't want people to get fatigued when it comes to warnings, because a warning is now. The alarm on the oven is going off. Your food's going to burn if you don't do something. Okay. I wish I could tell you more, but sometimes, like with my son, I mean, it's a psychological thing. You know, he's watching the stuff in Ukraine, and he's fascinated. This is the only, you know, major conflict he's been through. I mean, and I have to tell him, turn it off, put your phone down, because it's going to affect, if you just keep on pondering on things, it's going to bother you. So if you need to, step away from meteorologists online.
I have a question. If you are in traffic when a tornado warning is announced, what's the best way? And you can see in the clouds it's headed your way. What's the best way to protect yourself?
So if you can get out of the traffic and get to a sturdy building, that's going to be number one. That, no matter what, that should be what your goal is. When a tornado watch is put out, try not to get too far off course. Okay. Know where you might be able to go to if things start getting bad. If you cannot get to a sturdy building, being in your car is not a horrible thing. It's not the best, but you'll have a little bit of protection. You do not want to go underneath bridges and overpasses. Because if you go underneath, so if you have a bridge and overpass, and you know, here's the ground or what have you, and you go up under there, if a tornado comes, where do you think all that wind's going to go? Yeah, so you don't want to go underneath an overpass. So stay away from those. But you want to try and get to a building last case scenario, if you have to, get out of the car and go into a low ditch. Yeah, I would hate to have to do that, but yeah, that, you know, a car can be picked up. But if you get down enough into a low ditch, you may be okay, but worst case, just don't get in that situation. If a tornado watches out, just try and, you know, stay in places where you'll be safe if it goes south. Good questions. Any other questions? Do we have any questions online? I don't see. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate being here. It is my pleasure. And help yourself to the stuff that's here for those of you that are here.
Thank you. I appreciate your coming. This has been really valuable. And most of the information I have in my book I made for my family came from the FEMA site. So what I will do when she sends me the her PowerPoint, I'll make sure everybody that signed up gets the PowerPoint. Those on Zoom, if you want the PowerPoint, email me at Gloria, Gloria, period, Hauser, HAUSSER, and nashville.gov. And I'll make sure you get all the information that the people in the room received today. I've learned some things. I would have thought underpass might be a good place. So I'm glad you told me that, because I definitely would have got that one wrong. And the main reason I wanted to bring this today is not only to educate us, but so that we can be more relaxed in our life. So we don't have to be terrified, hovering in a corner, but we know, okay, this is happening. This is what I do. No problem. Just like if you're making a recipe and you don't have one ingredient, what's a substitute ingredient? You're calm. Because when we're calm, we can use our power to act. When we're terrified, that power goes away. So I really appreciate you, Heidi, coming out today. Thank you for making yourself available. Thank you, Dave, for our sound. We're forever grateful to you. And all of you that came here today, thank you so much. I do want to remind you that on May 21st is Bellevue Picnic. Early voting starts next week for the May 3rd primary. You have to already been registered to be able to vote in it, but there will be early voting for 10 days and then the election on May 3rd. So I hope that you're able to participate in that. We will in June have the League of Women Voters and the Davidson County Election Commission coming out, answering all your questions in regards to that. Are there anything going on in Bellevue that you want me to address today while you're all here? You got me. Shoot your arrows. That, okay. I'm sorry?
Is the picnic at Caboose Park?
No, the Bellevue Picnic will be at the middle school, which is across the street from that. That's when we had it the last time, and it worked out great because we had easy places for people to park, and we had plenty of room to set up all the tents and everything in a area that was much more adaptable to the people. So it will be at Bellevue Middle School.
So the picnic is an egg hunt, it's not the same.
I'm sorry?
The egg hunt they're advertising, the Easter egg hunt.
Oh, that's something different.
That's separate.
Yeah, that would be probably the next week, because next weekend is Easter weekend and Passover. But the picnic isn't until May 21st. It's a Saturday. Yeah.
About the drive that goes through the mall across the street. That's across, there's an intersection there where Goodwill is.
Yes.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
you're talking about the famous pothole issue. Ta-da-ta-ta. Yes, and we did have the director of codes out a few months ago to talk about that too. That is private property. So what we can do is sue them for fines, which is what we're doing. You would think that they would like, and actually, I am now trying to get together all the people who are leasing the space to have them put pressure upon the landlords that own the space. One of the things we have is we have multiple property owners there. Well, we got Taco Bell owns part, the Chase Bank. We have people that own part of that. There's not like one we can go after. And frankly, if you're all up for it, if I can't get some action pretty soon, I'm kind of thinking about naming each pothole.
Oh, I love it. I know it's cross.
This will be my last resort, but if we don't get some action pretty soon, I really will ask for a group of constituents to go out with me and we'll put little signs and say, this is the Taco Bell pothole brought to you
Oh, then we
by.
know who's responsible. Oh,
I don't want to do that, but if we can't, you know, if the fines, which are pretty puny, actually don't work, then that will be my next step. And so, and we will get coverage on that. I'm hoping we don't have to go to that level. But that is the reason is private property is not controlled by Metro. So all Metro can do is we send our codes guy out, he inspects, he says, yeah, this is bad. They need to fix it. We send them letters, they can say, forget it, or they can respond. Then the next step is to go to court. Then they're fined, they can pay it, say that's cheaper than fixing it, or they can actually do the responsible thing. I am hoping that we get them to do the responsible thing, but it has been dragging on for quite a while.
Have they been fined yet?
I'm sorry.
Has there been any fines issued? You know, it's okay.
Or they just pay.
No, and how much of a fine are we talking? $100 or $1,000?
It's $50, but I'm trying to get it to be $50 per day. Is what I'm trying to push for that, and rather than $150, but $50 a day. And I want it to be per pothole, but I haven't been able to get that through yet. But keep the pressure on. The best thing you could do to help me on that is go to hub.national.gov and report it. That's this is for any issue, whether it be potholes, whether it be you think a light needs to happen somewhere, or you see trash, anything within Metro that you want to report, you go to HUB Nashville .gov. And when you do that, you'll see a page that will have all these symbols, like for water or trash or what, you just click on whichever. You can take pictures and send it. You can send videos. You can send a description of what's going on. Try to give as accurate as you can address information. You may not know the address, but you know it's between this intersection and this intersection. The more information you can give and the more of you that do that, that gives me the power to do push. So it's not just Gloria, it's y'all saying there's an issue. So just because you report it doesn't mean that you can't also, and you can also, and you can also. But hub.national.gov is the site. Even if I call something in, that staff person will go to hub.national.gov to report it. So the quickest way, I'm not trying to push anything up, but the quickest way to get action is through that hub website. Any other questions? Okay, great. Well, go out and enjoy your chilly Saturday day. We will have spring eventually. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.